I'm Shahar Azani, and welcome to this JBS special Eye on Israel from Israel. We are here in the offices of Access Israel, a non-profit Israeli organization dedicated for the inclusion of people with disabilities in Israeli society and far beyond. With me are Yuval Wagner, the chairman and founder of Access Israel, and Michal Rimon, employee number 8 of Access Israel, and a wonderful, inspirational and visionary leader of this incredible organization. Yuval, let's start in understanding. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what made you create this incredible enterprise.
Well, it's a long story, and I'll make it short. Actually, my story, as you know, nonprofits are usually funded by some kind of a personal story.
Right.
And mine started when I was born. I was born to a father who is an IDF veteran, and he was wounded in his service and became a paraplegic that is confined to a wheelchair. And he was in the rehabilitation was married to my mother, which was his nurse. Anyway, growing up as a kid to a father that is on a wheelchair in a country at those days totally not accessible, which means nothing is accessible. Sidewalks, parks, stores, cinemas, stadiums, whatever you think of, you can't roll inside with a wheelchair. That had a meaning for that affected dramatically my life.
Right.
And actually not only mine, also my mother's and my brother's, where every time we had to go out, we understood we have to plan it, and we also understood that we have to carry my father.
Every time you open the door, it's an adventure, it's a journey.
It's it's work. And it's actually not fun. And luckily, my father was the one that, even though it was, so tough, he still, wanted to go out. But this was my normal life. This is the way I grew out. This is the way I grew up. And when I was a kid, all my thoughts were, I had a dream of when I joined the army, I will join the Air Force and hopefully become an Air Force pilot.
Right. It's a dream of so many.
Yeah, dream of so many, and it was also my dream. And I joined the Air Force, and I joined the Pilots Academy. And I was fortunate enough to become a pilot.
You must have been an excellent student in high school.
Actually, no, I was not so good at that, and no one has believed that I was going to become a pilot. But something probably was good enough to have made it happen.
See, there is hope.
Yeah. And being a pilot for me was fulfilling a dream, but also having the opportunity to understand what is serving the country all the way, and doing something that you're good at for the country. It's something that we grow on, but it's actually became my life. But unfortunately, still being a pretty young pilot, one day we had a training mission to fly from our base at Palmachim to fly to the north of Galilee. And we flew. It was a beautiful day.
What year was that?
It was March 18, 1987. And it was a beautiful day.
Somehow it always is.
Yes, and we took off at Palmachim. We flew over beautiful Jerusalem. And listen, seeing everything from above, it's even more beautiful.
The Dead Sea, probably.
And going down to the Dead Sea. and then going to the north. And we flew up at the height of 400 feet, the height of a high rise, at the speed of 200 kilometers per hour. And then, in just 1 second, the helicopter started shaking like crazy, making a wing over to the left, and crashed. So like 1 second, that from being a pilot, I immediately understood that we crashed and the change have happened. I understood immediately that I broke my neck and I can't move anything.
You realized there and then?
Yeah, I couldn't feel anything. I didn't feel anything, I couldn't move anything. I didn't know the name, but I felt what it means. And after that became a big rescue and a long time of rehabilitation where you learn how you start and continue to live. But now, as someone not that can fly, but actually only can roll, and for me, being paralyzed neck down, I also need to learn how to live with a caregiver, which is living with being not independent.
Yuval, how do you make that transition from, mentally? I understand the physical element of it, but the mental process of moving down from, that element of being an IDF combat pilot who can touch the sky to somebody who, like you just say, need a caregiver.
That is crazy because it starts immediately as a rehabilitation, but it takes years to learn yourself, to understand. And it's both having to deal with your health issues, but the biggest challenge, as you point out, is the psychology of accepting and deciding that you can live with it. And you actually have two options: to be in depression and not accept it, or to accept it and do the best you can to continue your life and make your life something with your life. And I believe that the biggest asset that I had those days that enabled me to be taking the right path and the optimist path was that I was surrounded with my great family, with my great friends, with my great friends from the squadron and the Israeli Air Force. And this surrounding, and maybe the values and the way I brought up from the family, have enabled me to win this fight of continuity, even though you are with such a severe disability.
And also, that the squadron's leader was also killed in that accident. You want to mention about that?
Yeah, and this is amazing because it can be only 3 feet away from each other. Me, the pilot, and my squadron leader is the same airplane, and we both broke the neck. But I'm very fortunately have somehow stayed alive from this. But unfortunately, Sion Baor, the squadron commander, which was a legend, have killed, and the face is face. It's crazy. And after a long rehabilitation where I learned how to roll and eat and work and dress and start living, I was lucky because the Air Force came to me and suggested for me, maybe we invested you into be a pilot, maybe we should find out for you something else to do, and not as a pilot, but maybe something else. And they suggested for me to go to a unit of computer or software programmers. And I said, why not? And in those days, no computers, and it was before it's not today.
Right.
It was the beginning of the, and this was a path where I found out that in computer programming I'm not too good, but I found out that I am good in managing and entrepreneuring and innovative thinking. So I found out that I made a 30-year career of project managing in the Israeli Air Force. And I was discharged a few years ago as a lieutenant colonel from the Air Force. And through those years, on top of being a job, I also studied a business degree, and I met my first wife and had our 3 kids that are now students. And I'm already a grandfather for 2 grandchilds. And I also divorced and living with a new wife. So I did everything on the record that everyone should do.
And for so many people,
equality.
that's enough, right? That's enough.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, to be able to, rehabilitate yourself, live a full life, have those experiences, kids, grandkids, that wasn't enough for you, Yuval?
Well, I thought I'm okay with that. I didn't have any plans to do anything more.
And then what happened?
But then, growing with my kids, this one day, actually it wasn't one day, through a few years, something enlightened for me that I understood that Israel is still fully not accessible. And now my kids are becoming or have to live the same way that I was living when I was a kid to the
decades passed, and you look out and it's the same.
The same. And differently than my father, I thought this is not the way it should happen. This is not the way it should be. Something where is there anyone there that is planning or working on changing this situation? And what I decided to do is to write a letter to the Israeli president, Mr. Ezer Weizmann, those days.
Right.
And I wrote a letter.
That was 1999.
Yeah, sent it by regular mail.
Regular mail.
And we always joke.
Yeah,
and we always joke that it arrived because you never know if a regular mail will arrive. And 2 days later, I will never forget that. I sent the letter on Wednesday, and on Friday I'm resting in my bed for afternoon nap, and I get this telephone from the president's house, and the president is wanting to talk to me.
You send a letter to the president of Israel, the higher echelon of leadership, and you get a phone call from the president of Israel on a Friday afternoon as you wake up from your nap.
Yeah. He said, I read your letter, and I'm calling you. First of all, I want to learn more about your accident, because Ezer Weizmann was a pilot himself.
Right.
And then he asked me, what's the word negishut? What's the word accessibility? I never heard of it. Because those days, it was not used in the terminology of those days. And then he said to me, Yovke, he gave me a new nickname, I'm ordering you to found a nonprofit that will make Israel fully accessible for all kinds of disabilities in all areas of life.
I could just hear his voice saying this.
Yeah, and Ezer was new as a very charismatic leader. And he said to me after that, I'm giving you 6 months to prepare it, and we're going to launch your organization here in the President's house. And wow, I was shocked from that conversation, and I understood that my life is changing once again. One time it's the accident, the second time when they told me maybe you continue to serve in the Air Force for years to come. And now I'm getting an order to lead a nonprofit organization.
One quick word for our viewers. I want you to focus on what Yuval just said when it comes to the word itself, Access Israel, accessibility. negishut in Hebrew, and the president not realizing what that is. Anybody who grew up in Israel in the past couple of decades has become ultra familiar with that word of negishut, accessibility, through the educational materials, outreach, ads out there. And that right there, Yuval, is the revolution that you have been able to lead through this organization.
Yeah, but you have to understand that when we say Access Israel and the word accessibility, it's in our name, it's not a goal. It is a means to an end. It's the way to reach the goal. The real goal is what you said at the beginning, inclusion, true inclusion, not just checking the box. And through accessibility in all areas of life for all types of disability, that is how it is achieved. And we'll elaborate on that later.
Yeah, so we got
no choice.
No
You
choice.
got the order from the president.
And we go for it. So we are founding a few friends that we all studied those days, our first degree, this Negishut Israel. And we pretty soon understand that the mission is much bigger and much more challenging than we thought and understood in the beginning. But because most of us have studied business degree, we decided to make a business plan, but not for profit. How to do it right, how to do it in the most effective way, making Israel fully accessible, like we got the mission. And we have got this amazing concept that works until today, that we work on 3 parallel threads. 1, making awareness. You can't make a real change, a dramatic change in such an issue if you don't make awareness. If people don't understand why it's so important, why it's needed to be done, and especially we pointed decision makers, which is ministers, which is municipalities, mayors, which is CEO and chairmen of businesses.
So the first goal, raise awareness.
Raise awareness why it's so important, why you can't leave out those 20% which are people with disabilities.
Can you say a few words about your target audience? Who are these people that Access Israel represents? Those people with disabilities. How big a percentage is it of the population, and who are they?
Today, this niche of people with disabilities is estimated as 20% of the population. The UN calls it the biggest minority in the world, which are people with various disabilities, physical, vision, hearing, cognitive, and others. And these people, everyone wants to be healthy. Our first, most important wish that we wish each other is good health to you all.
Right.
But some are in their phase of life is maybe to be born with a disability or illness, maybe in their life to have a car accident, work accident, an illness, it happens every day to our friends. And if you're lucky enough and you have your life without any disabilities, when you are elderly, it comes to you, whatever, to all.
But I'll add to that when we're talking about our audience are those 20% people with disabilities. That's fine. And by the way, 50% of the elderly are considered people with disabilities. But the audience of the people who are enjoying the fruits of what Access Israel is doing is basically everyone. Because each person with disability has his family, his friends. You remember the stories of Yuval as a child. Many people with disabilities just choose to stay home if there's no accessibility. So the ripple effect of what Access Israel is doing basically affects not 20%, but I won't say 100, there's nothing 100, but almost everyone in Israel.
So after doing awareness, and we chose a very unique way of doing awareness, we chose to do it only on a positive note. We want to go away from the stigmas of people with disabilities that they are,
The poor people with disabilities that we pity them.
We want to be enlightened as people, like everyone.
From pity to empower.
Yes.
To empower, as people, like we are all. So we chose all our campaigns to be lighted in a positive way. Our second thread is legislation. So in the state, you have the ADA, American Disability Act. We in Israel have legislated only in 1999 the Accessibility Act, and only when we came in 2005 the Accessibility Act. So in Israel,
1999 was the Equality Law, and then 2005 the Accessibility Act.
So only from 2005 we're starting to talk business or applying the accessibility laws, and this is become
regulate in accordance with the laws.
Yeah, and we've made probably the most progressed accessibility laws, regulation, and standard in the world.
Yeah.
And today, countries around the world are coming here to us to learn what's special about these very accessibility regulations and standards and laws. And the third thing is implementation. You know, if you have awareness and you have regulations and laws, it's not enough. At the end of the day, you want the change.
Make a difference.
Make the difference on the ground. And over here, again, we are very innovative, and we made this special, unique methods of how to do a big change in a very effective way. And those methods of taking organizations like ministries, like municipalities, like businesses, and make them fully accessible, not just on the physical way, because, you know, most of our viewers, when they think about accessibility, they see my wheelchair.
Correct.
And they think about
the ramp.
The ramp, exactly. But various disabilities have different accessibility solutions.
Right.
Because someone that is blind, you have no problem to go upstairs. The same as someone with a hearing disability. So each disability
has
its own solution of accessibility that enable them to live normal life.
And I will add to that I think if I need to give the essence of what accessibility is, it's finding the balance, the right balance between the needs of various disabilities. Because if you think about it, a blind person would be very happy that from the entrance to his house to any place he's going, there's tactiles. There's, like, you know, Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, you know, a yellow brick road with tactiles. They know that while they're walking on that, they don't need a cane, they don't need a guide dog. It's accessible all the way. The problem is that super accessibility solution for them is an obstacle for somebody like Yuval, sitting in a wheelchair, going all the time on bumps of tactiles, or somebody with crutches, or somebody that is older. So when we're talking accessibility, it's finding the balance, and it's never a perfect balance, and it's always, you know, somebody will find it more difficult, but it's finding the balance. That's the essence.
And you know, you use the word, Yuval, you're talking about innovation. And for so many people out there, innovation is only tied to the high-tech sector and startup nation. And what's missing from the startup nation equation many a time in the eyes of so many out there is the neshama, the soul of the matter, the ability not just to talk about drones and missiles and high-end technologies, but also changing individual lives through innovation and innovative thinking. And I think this is what both of you are talking about here.
That comes back to the awareness that where you are able to convince a decision maker, okay, let's say CEO of a large supermarket chain, okay, or any other big organization, and you can make him believe and understand why it's the right thing to do for his business, because it's 20% of its target market.
It's doing good while doing well.
Exactly.
Nice.
And it's also great for people with disabilities. And that comes back to one of our models, that the concept was win-win-win in every interaction. If we convince the CEO, he has a win. Access is a win. But the biggest W, the biggest win, is for people with disabilities that are now, with accessibility, are able to get the services or use the products from that organization.
You know what's beautiful here is that anybody who's listening to our conversation today understands not just about Access Israel, but you're actually giving them the menu of how to create change.
Absolutely.
You're talking about, regulation. You're talking about implementation. You're talking about awareness. This can be applicable
to
for anything and everything of anybody who wants to do good. And there is another element here. I know I'm hearing you. And even though you're talking Israel, you're talking so much more beyond Israel of how to share, your knowledge and access Israel's experience. You mentioned the experience of people coming here to learn about the legal procedures and how to regulate change into everyday life. That's an incredible element.
So I would like to go back to your last question about the neshama.
Right.
And connected to how I got into the picture. I am a Ramaz graduate. Ramaz is an amazing yeshiva in New York City. As a student, I learned with, Rabbi Lookstein is the head of,
Right.
if I'm talking neshama, that's where a lot of my neshama came from. A lot of important lessons for life. Again, I'm not a good French speaker, but I was there in all the demonstrations for Sharansky and for freeing our brothers in Russia, and doing good while doing well, but the focus there was really on doing good, on tzionut. And I think these are the tools that brought me to the picture. I was a lawyer, in the right pace, to doing well for my family. And I felt that I really needed to do something for the neshama and doing something that will help me go to sleep every night knowing I did good. And that's how I met this guy. And he told me the story that he just shared with all of us. And I think 15 minutes into the meeting, it was clear to both of us that I'm here to stay.
I locked the door.
Yeah, locked the door, threw the key. The truth is I came only for 2 years, and that was 15 years ago. I just wanted to learn how NGOs work. And I came as a legal advisor, as a general counsel for Access Israel, and was part of the legislation process, etc. But Yuval was smart enough to understand that I might be a lawyer, but that's not where my passion is. And basically, I started in Access Israel, the education and training department. Now, again, we're talking about a time where this was not by law in Israel. We are telling the story here, but I'm sure that you have amazing interviewers in other stories, and we always remember the last one we hear. And what was important for us is the understanding that we need to stay there in the recognition and in the awareness of the people. And the way to do it is what we developed as the 4 pillars of Access Israel. Knowledge is important because when you know something, you're less afraid of, but it's not enough because then the next lecturer will come and give you knowledge. So we combine it with experience, because when you really experience something, that's when it sticks to you. The kishke, it goes into your guts and you really get an understanding. And we took this non-sexy, subject. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, hey, I want to try out how it feels to be in a wheelchair or blind. And we found the way to have people line up to do it. So innovative ways of really experiential education, but that's not enough either. Because I can stand and talk and, give a lecture and have people experience, but the whole idea is for them to meet the Yuvals, meet the people behind the disability, get to ask all the questions you really wanted to ask always, and it wasn't politically correct. I always have that mother with the child pointing at the weird person with disability standing in front, and the mother is going like this, don't point, it's not good, walk as if they're not there. No, they're there. Ask them a question, talk to them, get to know them. That will create the change. The knowledge, the experience, the getting to know the person behind the disability. And the 4th pillar is providing them with tools to make a change. And it doesn't matter if you're the CEO of the supermarket chain in Israel or bank, or you're a first grader. Each one can make a change. And that was the essence, basically, of what we started. And then I became the CEO of Access Israel and took all the things Yuval was speaking about, the awareness, the legislation, the implementation. And, you said I'm the employee number 8. Today we are 120 employees in Access Israel. So we took that and really pushed it forward.
Yuval Ezer Weitzman.
Absolutely.
He got the order, he's able to take it to the next level.
Absolutely.
You know what else is amazing? For so many people out there, the word Zionism in and of itself is in demonstrations, and the people who try to tarnish the word and foil it with all sorts of insinuations and accusations. And I'm not even going to Chaim Herzog, the late Chaim Herzog, in the 1975 resolution. And listening to you, it's the real understanding of what it means to live a Zionist life of meaning, because you breathe essence into it in what you do every day. And that's what I want our viewers to remember, to see what it means, not just in the textbooks or the advocacy or educational material, but how Zionism changes lives every day.
Yeah, for me, the point where I understood that it became my life mission is that after I was finished my service in the Air Force, I started to get job offers. And this one day I was looking in my mirror and I looked at myself, what do I choose? And at that day I understood the meaning. Because I understood that my life path, from being a kid to my father, for my action, for my service, for my way of living, is to make Israel and probably the world accessible and inclusive. And that day I decided that I'll continue my work only on this as a volunteer. I didn't take any job. This is all I do, 7/24.
Because not 24, 22. You sleep 2 hours a night.
Because I understood that this is my light and this is my tzionut. And that's why I do it in Israel, but not only in Israel. And I think this is a place where Michal should share, where we learn this, where we enlightened on the idea that we must not focus only on Israel, but our mission is worldwide too. So maybe
before I'm looking behind you, yes, and I'm seeing the emblem of the United Nations. And in the eyes of so many out there, and in Israel, by the way, the perception of the UN is clear. The bias against Israel in some of the UN's organs is clear. So what is this all about?
Okay, first of all, and I need to take a breath for a second, this is the most accessible picture painting in Israel. And you see the face on top. Right. That is Netta Rotman. Netta was my deputy in Access Israel, an amazing, beautiful, talented lady who was ready to go with me to the UN in Vienna to a conference, which I'll elaborate about in a second. And unfortunately, as we packed her car and left the parking lot, a crane fell on her and killed her on the spot. We lost Netta in Israel, right here, downstairs in this building. And basically, we lost Netta, but we didn't lose her dream. And I can tell you that this is a picture her father, who is a painter, an amazing artist, drew. And it brings together the essence of Netta. The people that you see here, she was very much a people's person, looking at the world, trying to make it human, trying to find the way to work together to change the world. The UN she was my partner to what I'll elaborate in a second. And basically, this picture, by the way, is accessible so even blind people can, through the tactile painting, understand what's on this canvas, and people with cognitive disability can have an explanation in simple language. So this is it. And we'll start with the symbol that you're talking about, the symbol of the UN. The first international conference I went with Netta was at the UN building in Vienna, Zero Project. We went there to learn from the world. And as Yuval said, one of the amazing things that I
just want to point this out for our viewers, because you do it so naturally. There isn't to teach to educate, to learn, to join hands, to work together.
That's the basis. Because we went to learn, and I was very happy, first of all, to understand that there's a lot to learn, but also that I can share also. Access Israel has a lot to share. And I think the word is not teach, the word is share. And this was the beginning. And after that, in my past, worked with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I was the spokesperson for the embassy, for the Israeli mission to the UN. So I knew the concept of the UN. And one of my best friends there said, listen, what you're doing needs to go international. So go and become an advisor, a special advisor to the UN, an NGO that is recognized by the UN. And we went there, and I must tell you, you're talking about what Israelis know and feel about the UN. The amazing thing is we passed the first session that was on our case. We passed with flying colors and became a recognized NGO. And that was...
No objection?
No objection. And
All by the Iranians.
It was Iran, Cuba, I think.
What year was that?
I think it was 2016, 15 or 16. And the amazing thing is, guys, this is borderless. This is non-controversial. People are people. I can tell you that throughout the last 8 years, everywhere we go, we speak to people from all over the world. It's amazing to learn and see how the same problems, people want to get and reach the same end result of inclusion, but each one is doing it in a different way, and that's the beauty of sharing and learning from each other. Now, we started there, we became an NGO recognized by the UN, and since then, we have been very active. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs saw us.
What does that mean for the sake of our viewers, that you are...
very active.
Yeah,
I'll tell you.
That you're also recognized as an NGO recognized by the UN.
I can tell you that my passport is stamped with amazing places in the world like Brazil, Ecuador, Vienna, Kazakhstan, Russia, the US, of course, Dubai, really all over the world, going and sharing the 4 pillars we were talking about, the knowledge, the information that we have gathered throughout the years.
Because of your UN position?
It's because the UN, but mostly a lot because of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which understands this is an asset to be pushed, and also through our international context. Now already we are known globally
as recognized entity on the international stage.
Yeah. And we are invited to speak, we're invited to share, we're invited to really help. Access Israel is leading international network. Today, COVID, we're all dealing with COVID. For us, we totally made it a lemonade. This lemon. Today we have thousands of people, part of our international network from 125 countries from all over the world. And the idea is to go there, share the knowledge, share the experience, share bring people from Israel so they can speak and they can share their stories, and really finding ways to make it better. I will add one thing with your permission. Israel has something very, very unique. Israel is the only country in the world where by law, every service provider has to go through annual training on accessible services. No other country in the world has that, especially when we're talking about both public and private sector.
Accessibility training for the staff at humanitarian aid centers. Elderly and people with disabilities are the largest minority in the world and represent about 20% of the population. There exist various types of disabilities. Some of them are visible, others are not. Disabilities include sight, hearing, physical, mental, intellectual, developmental disabilities, autism, communicational, speech difficulties, reading, writing, etc. In times of humanitarian crisis and emergency, this population is highly at risk and faces unique and complicated difficulties and challenges due to lack of information, support, and accessible solutions. In addition, the crews are untrained in providing accessible and customized assistance. Upon a person's arrival at the Humanitarian Aid Center, it is important for us to be vigilant and try to find and identify individuals with disabilities or those in need of special assistance. Approach them and ask if they need help. Only if the answer is positive, ask how you may assist. Do not decide for them. Remember, you are the first person to meet and assist them. Make sure to assist in an accessible and sensitive manner from the very beginning. This makes it easier for them in this complicated situation. Where might they need your help? At the entrance to the center, during the registration process, finding a bed, using toilets or showers, receiving medical care, in the dining area, getting supply and equipment, general orientation, and receiving information. During initial registration, if a person with a disability is having trouble waiting online due to physical or mental difficulty, enable him or her to reach the accessible counter without waiting online. Address the person with a disability and not only people near him or her. Speak slowly and clearly, in short sentences, and using simple language. Offer to assist with reading and filling forms if needed. Offer assistance with orientation and guidance, including providing a verbal description of the environment or situation. If the person does not respond when you talk to him or her, they may not have heard you. Make eye contact, keep your face visible to them, and do not hide your mouth to allow lip reading. You can communicate by writing on paper or using a cell phone. If it is a deaf person who speaks sign language, sign them up for the Sign Now app for real-time sign language translation in a language that suits them. For an elderly person or a person with a physical disability, offer help carrying their luggage, as well as with orientation until they are settled in a bed adapted to their needs. People with reduced mobility and the elderly should be sent to an area with elevated beds and wider passages. Direct them to the location of accessible facilities, toilets, showers, assistive devices. In the common areas, such as the dining area or where guests get supplies and other items, it is important to keep passages free of obstacles. Offer assistance with carrying items, picking things up off a shelf or counter, or serving things to the table for people who have difficulty doing these things on their own. It is usually very difficult to identify an individual with a cognitive, communication, or mental disability. Nevertheless, during a crisis, people with such disabilities tend to feel more distress, confusion, stress, and anxiety. Show sensitivity to the person's condition, introduce yourself, and be attentive and calming. Offer them to go to a quiet place if possible. Make waiting in line shorter. Provide them with information about the procedure and the humanitarian center using simple language. Suggest guidance and support. Remember, providing accessible assistance depends on each and every one of you. Act with patience, respect, and sensitivity to each person. For more information about the Purple Vest mission, please log on to www.purple-vest.net. Together, we will leave no one behind.
This is basically adopting what Access Israel did way before the legislation. And not only that, the legislator adopted the experiential part. It is mandatory to go through experiences. And that is something we're sharing outside.
Is there any other, let's say, sister organization that exists out there like Access Israel? Access UK, Access US, or are you leading the way in a very unique way?
We are leading the way in a very unique way. And I think what the viewers should understand that accessibility, again, it's not a ramp. It's about some kind of evolution that is started with the built environment, later on with the service environment. Today we are getting more to the edge of digital internet environment, and we are in the future talking about tech environment. We're going to live in a tech era. And it's about
no rest.
No rest, but what I think is interesting is people can imagine a building accessible, or even can imagine an entity or business accessible. But we're talking about also accessible communities. So if your viewers think about your community, and for example understand that maybe the elderly or people with disabilities can't join you to the events that you're arranging. This should enlighten for you the need of making your community, making your organization accessible. And we have the knowledge, not just to make Israel a fully accessible country, but we are also willing and wanting to help anyone out there to make it happen too, using our methods. So this is something that was unique in the theme of nonprofit organization. What are these guys? They're doing good stuff and they also want to give it away, to spread it out? Yes, we do, because this is the soul, this is our Judaism, this is our Tzionut, and we're very proud and looking forward for any connection, any partners, any donators that want to enlarge this, because this is probably the biggest, most impacting initiative in the world. You have to understand that, because I don't know any other nonprofit that engages more than 20% of the population and knows how to make the change that it's life-changing.
You speak a universal language, yes. But you also mentioned something hidden in your words just now about not just making a reality accessible, but devising the reality to begin with as accessible. So when you start thinking about the processes, you're already envisioning the accessibility.
By design.
Yes, so talk to me about that for a minute.
One of the things that we found that happening all over the world and in Israel is that everything is being done in the wrong way, which means they do build a building not accessible.
Right.
They build a website not accessible.
Right.
They give a service, an event, a festival, it's not accessible. And then they retroactively
they make
fix
adjustments,
it and
right?
make adjustments. So it costs more, it takes a longer time.
Right.
So it's not the right way to do. So one of the trends that we're trying to change is no more retroactively. Anything you do, make it accessible by design. And if we do that on one way, make sure everything that's being done in ministries, in municipalities, in businesses, accessible by design. If we teach every kid today to understand why it's so important, accessibility for people and people with disabilities and the elderly, and then when they will grow up, they will make sure everything being by design, then we can be optimists to make the future of Israel and the world accessible for all. And going back,
this is where awareness leads to action.
Absolutely.
If I'm aware,
and back. And I want to go personally. At the end of the day, think about your surrounding, yourselves, your friends, your family, your neighbors. We are out there. And I call you to help us. And together, you and us can really make the world and our daily life accessible, enabling those that have disabilities to continue to work and study and go to trips and be part of the community. But this can be happen together with us.
I would like to elaborate a little bit about this important point that Yuval stated here and go to the word we. Because when I'm talking we, there is an organization that I have to mention. And this is US Pride, an organization that originally was called FASER, Friends of Access Israel, and today Accessibility Accelerator. Basically, I said I'm a Ramaz graduate, and I remember as a senior when Alan Brown, a former Ramaz student, had an accident. I think it was a year after Yuval had his accident, and basically became paralyzed just like Yuval. And I remember as a child being there with all the kids thinking, that's it. His life is probably over. What else can he do? Right. And later when I came and was accepted to the UN as an NGO, we had a meeting with a commissioner for the rights of people with disabilities in New York City. And he put on the line this guy, Alan, on a speaker. And Alan participated on the call with us. And when the call ended, I said, this throws me back to my Ramaz days with my best buddies there, making fun of each other and cracking jokes. And then they said, what do you mean Ramaz? Alan is from Ramaz. Then everything connected and I said, it's that Alan. And I called him up and then he said something very life-changing. He said, last time I was in Israel was in my bar mitzvah. I really wanted to go back, but I'm with a disability. And then I said, what do you mean you're with a disability and you can't come to Israel? What do you think Yuval and I are doing here? And the amazing staff. We're doing all we're doing to change Israel so you can come. Right. We invited him over. He came for a 2-week trip in Israel from north to south. Wow. Was able to go everywhere. And after that, he brought in Jamie Lassner, again from the Ramaz community. And Jamie basically dropped everything and established this NGO. And this NGO is basically taking the methodology that Access Israel is doing, the we effect that Yuval was talking about, helping raise donations for Access Israel and others that promote this inclusion we're talking about, opening doors to technologies, Israeli technologies, to make all our lives more accessible.
So regulation, technology, awareness,
exactly.
Education, collaboration, wow.
And I can tell you that this same Jamie Lassner, as we speak, is in our new project. As we speak, he is in Poland on the Polish border with Ukraine, because when we're talking, again, one of the lessons that I learned as a Ramaz graduate is your responsibility. Right. You have a responsibility. I was talking about the network and about all the connections we made. That comes with a responsibility. When the war in Ukraine started, we started receiving calls for help. And if you are a leader, you have to lead. And we started helping on a small scale, people with disabilities in wheelchairs that basically came out of a country that is not very accessible to begin with, but came to the registration points, to the border, trying to escape.
So what's the purple vest then?
Okay, so if you remember...
Shortly. Because
yes, very shortly. Probably one of the most important projects now, but... if you remember December 3rd, all of us saw purple light in the Empire State Buildings, Taj Mahal, Eiffel Tower, with a mission, leaving no one behind. 3 months later, what happened? They were left behind. People in Ukraine with disabilities, elderly, were left behind. The evacuations were not accessible. Transportation was not accessible. Accommodations were not accessible. What we did is we took the purple from the light and turned them into action. And today, to make a long story short, today basically we have we actually help. We have evacuated hundreds and hundreds of people with disabilities, elderly, and their families. We have assisted thousands of people who chose to stay behind, and leaving no one behind means don't be paternalistic. Don't decide for them that they need to leave. You have to give them the credit to make a choice, and you have to make sure you're not leaving them behind, even if they choose to stay behind. So we're helping with supplies, we're helping with all kinds of other, food, medicine, etc. And we are getting information out there, website, all kinds of trainings that we do to connect the dots. All those who are helping, let's make sure they're accessible and they know what accessibility is. They even know what disability is. Many of the people there don't talk the same language, don't really know what disability is. Are they just people in wheelchairs or other disabilities that we have to take into consideration? And basically, this is what we have been doing since March with the great assistance of the Nippon Foundation, who really gave us the opportunity to go basically large scale and not just help the little amounts.
I have to, this is so much, so incredible, so inspirational. So I just want to ask you what's on the minds of everybody watching this and listening to both of you. How do I find you? How do we get in touch? What's the website? If you can share that with our viewers so that they're able to tap into this incredible riches and hopefully spread that light so far beyond.
So we love partners, we love cooperation. If you feel like you want to do something together, just call us www.aisrael.org. That's it. Our contacts inside, or Yuval Wagner, the chairman and founder, Michal Rimon, our CEO. Looking forward to see you.
And to our viewers, I'd like to say, what an incredible inspiration we've just witnessed. The true meaning of Zionism and living a meaningful life is manifested right here with Yuval and Michal, who are able to tell us all that it's not just a vision, it's not just a dream, it's all very much implementable. You've just witnessed a roadmap to goodness. If you want to achieve a goal of contributing to society, this is exactly how it's done. Continue to share the light and continue to spread the great news. I'm Shahar Azani, having the pleasure of spending precious inspirational time with Yuval and Michal right here in Israel on another wonderful episode of Eye in Israel from Israel. Thank you so much for watching, and see you soon in the Eye of Israel.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double high or more. Simply visit the JBS website at jbstv.org and click on the donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check to JBS, Post Office Box 360, Stamford, Connecticut 06904. Or you can call the JBS Pledge Line at 833-MY-JBS-TV. That's 833-695-2788. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. We thank you for your kind support.